The Vexari Syndicate had ruled the Outer Spiral for 3,000 years. They were slavers, pirates, and merchants of flesh. 17 different species had fallen under their chains. Worlds burned when they refused to submit. The Syndicate owned everything from the Kalos Nebula to the dark edges of the Perseus Arm. Their ships numbered in the hundreds of thousands. Their soldiers were bred for war. Their reputation made entire civilizations surrender without firing a single shot. When their scout vessels discovered a small blue world in an unremarkable solar system, they thought they had found their next harvest. The planet was called Earth. The creatures living there called themselves humans. They had barely started exploring their own star system. Their technology was primitive by galactic standards. They had no shields, no plasma weapons, and no faster-than-light travel. The Syndicate watched them for 50 years, studying their behaviors and counting their numbers. 8 billion souls lived on that planet. 8 billion potential slaves. High Overlord Craxus reviewed the scout reports in his command chamber aboard the flagship Eternal Torment. He was massive, even by Vexari standards. His scaled body stood 3 meters tall. His forearms ended in claws that had personally killed thousands. He had overseen the conquest of 6 worlds. Earth would be his 7th. The reports made him smile. Humans were soft. They had no natural armor, no venom, no claws worth mentioning. They died easily. They fought among themselves constantly. They were divided into hundreds of warring factions. They would be simple to break. What the scouts failed to mention was what humans did when they stopped fighting each other. The Syndicate invasion fleet arrived in Earth orbit on a spring morning. 300 warships darkened the sky. They broadcast their demands across every frequency. Surrender or die. Submit or burn. The humans had 12 hours to make their choice. The response came in 11. It was not a surrender. A single transmission reached the Eternal Torment. A human female appeared on the screen. She wore a uniform covered in metals. Her hair was gray. Her eyes were cold. She identified herself as Fleet Admiral Chen Wei of the Terran Defense Coalition. She said 7 words that the Syndicate would never forget. "You should not have come here." High Overlord Craxus laughed. He ordered the attack. The first wave of Syndicate dropships descended through the atmosphere. They carried 50,000 shock troops. These soldiers had conquered worlds. They feared nothing. They expected scattered resistance from primitive weapons. They expected easy prey. They found something else entirely. The humans had been preparing for this moment for 50 years. They knew the Syndicate was watching. They knew invasion was coming. They had united in secret. Every nation on Earth had contributed. Every resource had been dedicated to one single purpose: survival. The dropships landed in what appeared to be empty fields. The shock troops deployed in perfect formation. They advanced toward the nearest population centers. They made it exactly 400 meters. Then the ground opened up. Concealed bunkers revealed massive electromagnetic rail cannons. These weapons fired tungsten projectiles at 15 kilometers per second. The Syndicate troops had never encountered kinetic weapons of this magnitude. Their personal shields were designed to deflect plasma bolts and laser beams. They offered no protection against metal moving faster than anything they had ever seen. The first wave died in 90 seconds. High Overlord Craxus watched in confusion as his ground forces were erased. He ordered the second wave, then the third. Each time, hidden human defenses emerged from the landscape. Underground missile silos launched weapons that the Syndicate computers could not track. Fighter jets screamed through the air at speeds that seemed impossible. Human soldiers appeared from tunnels that extended for hundreds of kilometers. The humans did not fight like prey. They fought like predators that had been waiting for their chance. Craxus made the decision to bombard the planet from orbit. If he could not have the slaves, he would have the satisfaction of their extinction. He ordered his fleet to target the major cities. The order never reached its completion. From behind the moon came ships, human ships, hundreds of them. They were not the primitive vessels the scouts had reported. These were warships built in secret shipyards hidden throughout the solar system. They were ugly things, all hard angles and brutal purpose. They had no elegance. They had no beauty. They were designed for one thing only: killing. The human fleet hit the Syndicate formation like a hammer striking glass. Their weapons were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. They fired missiles that split into thousands of smaller projectiles. They launched nuclear warheads directly into Syndicate engine cores. They used focused microwave emitters that cooked crews alive inside their own ships. But their most devastating weapon was something far simpler. Humanity had developed ships that could accelerate to significant fractions of light speed. They had packed these ships with dense matter. They had aimed them at Syndicate vessels. The impacts released energy equivalent to nuclear explosions. There was no defense against the rock moving at impossible velocity. The Battle of Earth lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 217 Syndicate ships were debris floating in orbit. The remaining vessels fled into faster-than-light travel, their crews screaming in terror. High Overlord Craxus was among the dead. The Eternal Torment had been cored by a kinetic impactor that punched through it from bow to stern. The Syndicate thought the matter was finished. They had lost a fleet. They had lost an overlord. It was a setback, nothing more. They still had hundreds of thousands of ships. They still ruled the outer spiral. The humans were trapped in their single system. They posed no real threat. This was their final mistake. The humans captured Syndicate faster than light technology from the wrecked ships. Their engineers studied it. Their scientists improved it. Within 5 years, they had built their own version. Within 10 years, they had built something better. Within 20 years, they had constructed a fleet that made the invasion force look like toys. The Terran Imperial Navy was born from fire and blood. Its ships were crewed by humans who remembered the invasion. Its officers were trained to show no mercy to those who dealt in slavery. Its mandate was simple: find the Syndicate. End them. Admiral Chen Wei did not live to see the first campaign. She died peacefully in her sleep at the age of 92. But her words had become the motto of the fleet she had created. You should not have come here. Now the humans were coming for them. The Imperial fleet entered Syndicate space like a storm. They struck the outer colonies first. Slave processing facilities were destroyed. Chains were broken. Species that had been in bondage for centuries were freed. The humans asked nothing in return. They wanted only one thing: information about the Syndicate homeworld. The liberated slaves were happy to provide it. World after world fell. The Syndicate fleets attempted to mount defenses. They outnumbered the humans significantly. They had more ships, more soldiers, more resources. None of it mattered. Human tactical doctrine was something the galaxy had never encountered. They were unpredictable. They were creative. They were absolutely unwilling to accept defeat. They developed new weapons in the middle of battles. They adapted to every Syndicate strategy within hours. They treated war not as a science, but as an art form. More importantly, they were angry. The Syndicate had threatened their world. The Syndicate had tried to enslave their children. The Syndicate had looked at humanity and seen nothing but meat to be harvested. This insult would not be forgiven. This threat would not be allowed to continue existing. The war lasted 12 years. In that time, the Imperial fleet destroyed 9,000 Syndicate warships. They liberated 42 enslaved worlds. They hunted down every Syndicate stronghold, every hidden base, every secret refuge. They were thorough in a way that shocked the galactic community. They did not accept surrenders from Syndicate leadership. They did not negotiate. They did not stop. The final battle took place above Vexor Prime, the Syndicate homeworld. The remaining Syndicate fleet made their last stand there. They had gathered every ship they could find. They had armed every citizen. They had fortified their orbital platforms. They believed they could hold. They were wrong. The Imperial fleet arrived with 2,000 warships. They were joined by vessels from the liberated species. Former slaves crewed ships beside human officers. Together, they formed an armada united by shared suffering and shared purpose. The battle began at dawn and ended at sunset. When the last Syndicate vessel exploded, when the final orbital platform crumbled, when the defensive grids fell silent, the Imperial fleet descended to the surface. They were not there to conquer. They were not there to enslave. They were there to ensure that the Syndicate would never threaten anyone again. The great towers of Vexor Prime were demolished. The slave markets were burned. The genetic laboratories where shock troops had been bred were destroyed. Every piece of Syndicate infrastructure was reduced to rubble and ash. Those Vexori who had not participated in the slave trade were spared. They were relocated. They were given the chance to build something new, something better, something that did not depend on the suffering of others. Those who had participated were not given that chance. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. They had never seen anything like humans before. Other species waged war for territory, for resources, for pride. Humans waged war for revenge. Humans waged war to protect the future. Humans waged war until the threat was completely and utterly gone. The news spread to every corner of known space. The Syndicate, which had terrorized the galaxy for 3,000 years, no longer existed. They had been erased by a species they had considered prey. They had been destroyed by creatures they thought would make good slaves. The lesson was not lost on other predator civilizations. They had all noticed Earth. They had all considered conquest. They had all weighed the benefits of harvesting 8 billion soft, clawless, defenseless creatures. Now they knew the truth. Humans were not soft. Humans were patient. Humans remembered every wrong done to them. Humans built weapons that made galactic powers seem primitive. Humans never stopped, never surrendered, never forgot. The Syndicate thought humanity was prey. The Imperial fleet proved otherwise. In the aftermath, the Terran Empire became a protector of the weak. They offered alliance to any species that renounced slavery and conquest. They offered protection to worlds that could not protect themselves. They asked only that their allies remember one simple rule: never prey upon the innocent. Those who followed this rule found humanity to be the most loyal friends in the galaxy. Those who broke it discovered why the Syndicate no longer existed. Admiral Chen Wei's words became famous across 1,000 star systems. They were translated into hundreds of languages. They were carved into monuments on liberated worlds. They served as a warning and a promise. You should not have come here. The humans meant every word.